March 23, 2005, the BP refinery in Texas City, Texas. Several units at the refinery had been shut down for lengthy maintenance projects, which required nearly 1,000 contractors to be on site, along with BP employees. BP had positioned a number of portable trailers close to process units for the use of contractors and other maintenance workers. Over a period of months, BP had located 10 trailers for workers servicing the Ultra Cracker unit, including a double-wide wood-frame trailer that contained 11 offices and was regularly used for meetings. Though these trailers...
A 2005 accident at a BP refinery confined David leaning to a wheelchair for 6 months. It killed Ralph Dean's father-in-law and left his wife badly scarred and too sick to work. Both men say someone should go to jail over what happened. BP officials didn't get in any trouble for killing people, said Dean, a former engineering firm worker who, along with his wife and father-in-law, once contracted with BP. They're still doing it. You're consumable if you're a blue-collar worker for BP. If you get hurt, they throw a little money at it and go on.
Added this information to both a satellite control room and a central control room located away from the ISOM unit. But this level indicator was not designed to measure liquid above the 9-foot mark. During normal operation, the tower was only supposed to contain about 6½ feet of liquid. But during startups, operators routinely deviated from written procedures and filled the tower above the 9-foot mark, concerned that if the liquid level fluctuated too low, it would cause costly damage to the furnace. At 3:09 a.m., as the liquid neared the 8-foot mark, a high level...
All 15 contractors killed that warm afternoon were working with Leaning and other BP employees in or near the group of office trailers that BP had placed on refinery grounds to house workers during a turnaround. Industry lingo for shutdowns, maintenance, and startups. The most dangerous time at a refinery.
Just a little mistake. Just a little mistake. Just a little mistake.
Been overseeing the startup from the satellite control room within the ISOM unit. At 5 a.m., he briefly updated the night board operator in the central control room about the startup activities. The lead operator then left the refinery early, an hour.
The fact is, they are a serial killer, a serial polluter, a serial fraudster. And one would hope that the prosecuting authorities would decide to be serious about them. BP and the Department of Justice declined to comment on the Texas City plea deal revocation efforts. Under the terms of the deal, BP pleaded guilty to a felony charge for violating the Federal Clean Air Act and agreed to serve a 3-year probationary period and to pay a $50 million fine. In return, the Justice Department agreed not to bring additional criminal charges against BP.
Just a little mistake.
To pack wrath with. At 7:15 a.m., the day shift supervisor arrived. Because he was more than an hour late, he received no formal briefing from personnel on the night shift about conditions in the ISOM unit. At 9:51 a.m., operators resumed the startup. They began recirculating the liquid feed and adding more liquid to the already overfilled tower. As new feed was added, startup procedures called for regulating the liquid level in the tower using the automatic level control valve. But the board operator and others had received conflicting instructions on routing.
Pat Nickerson, a 28-year veteran of the Texas City refinery, was on site that day driving his truck to an office trailer. I looked down the road. It looked like fumes, like on a real hot day, and then I saw an ignition and a blast. Then my windshield shattered. The roof of the vehicle I was driving caved in on me, Nickerson recalls. Nickerson began digging through the wreckage looking for survivors. Out of the corner of my eye there was somebody on the ground, he remembers. A guy named Ryan Rodriguez. And he was just kind of staring at me. He couldn't move because his face was so, deformed and everything from the blast. And some, bones and stuff that were protruding from his chin. Nickerson says Rodriguez eventually died in the ambulance.
As the startup continued, the tower steadily filled with liquid, reaching a height of 98 feet shortly before noon, more than 15 times the normal level. But the improperly calibrated level indicator told operators in the control room that the liquid was at 8.4 feet and gradually falling. Furthermore, the control panel was not configured to clearly warn operators of the growing danger. It did not display flows into and out of the tower on the same screen, nor did it calculate the total liquid in the tower. Meanwhile, the maintenance contractors, who were not involved in the operation of the ISOM unit, left their work trailers to attend a company lunch, celebrating a month without a lost time injury. At 12:41 p.m., an alarm activated as the rising...
Good morning. First, I would like to thank Chairman Miller and the entire committee for inviting me to speak today on the tragedy at the BP Texas City Oil Refinery. For me and many others, tomorrow will be a solemn day in Texas City, Texas, as it marks the second anniversary of a horrible blast that ripped apart my life and the lives of so many others. The explosion at BP's oil refinery murdered 15 people, including my parents, James and Linda Rowe, and injured hundreds more. The true tragedy is that it was needless and completely avoidable. At approximately 1:20 p.m. that day, BP initiated a dangerous procedure at the refinery using outdated and faulty equipment that sent 7,600 gallons of highly flammable liquid hydrocarbons, the equivalent of a tanker truck full of gasoline, into the air. Dozens of workers were in trailers as close as 100 feet away and were not warned of the imminent danger when idling trucks ignited the devastating chain reaction explosion. I personally believe that BP, with its corporate culture of greed over profits, murdered my parents, denying my brother Jeremy and me, along with the families of 13 others, the joy of the love of our fathers, mothers, brothers, and sisters, and the warmth of their smiles and embraces forever. It is of little comfort to us, but we hope that through this legislation to ensure more stringent worker health and safety standards, that their deaths won't be in vain. Today I ask Congress to carefully review the report issued this week by the U.S. Chemical Safety Board and act with great speed on its recommendations. I ask that you create an environment of safety for all workers who risk their lives each day in already dangerous jobs that contribute so much to our great country and its economy. Today I come to Congress asking that you mandate by law a change in corporate culture by requiring that all corporations place workers' safety before profits. Today I come to Congress and ask that you require OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, to increase safety and inspections of all oil refineries as the Chemical Safety Board has recommended. In Austin tomorrow, we will gather on the steps of the state capitol to announce the Remember the 15 bill in the Texas State Legislature. It is the first step in seeking to mandate that those running the petrochemical industry create a safe working environment for its workers. Today I come to Congress asking that you join with the great state of Texas and change the laws of our land so that no other family will have to feel the pain and sadness I have felt hearing of my parents' deaths. Thank you all so very much for your time and for this opportunity.
12 of the 20 occupants of the double-wide trailer were killed, along with 3 workers in a trailer nearby. 180 workers were injured, many with serious burns, fractures, or other traumatic injuries. The wood and metal frame trailers were blown apart by the blasts. Firefighters struggled to rescue the injured and recover the victims. 50 large chemical storage tanks were damaged, and the ISOM unit remained shut down for more than 2 years. The disaster at BP Texas City was the most serious refinery accident ever investigated by the CSB. Contrary to BP's own procedures, no experienced supervisor was assigned to replace him. This left a single control board operator, now without a qualified supervisor, to run 3 refinery units, including the ISOM unit, which needed close attention. The refinery had eliminated a second board operator position following corporate budget cuts in 1999 after BP acquired Amoco.
The lessons from Texas City hold significant learnings not only for the rest of the BP group but for the whole industry. BP is determined to make a concerted and lasting improvement in process safety. Safe, responsible and reliable operations are and will continue to be the #1 priority. However, the company is not starting from scratch. The existing strong focus on personal safety and environmental care with declining personal injury rates among the best in industry is being applied to process safety. Much progress has been achieved, but more is still to do. It is a long journey indeed. BP's commitment to continuous improvement will never really end. Will never really end. Will never really end. Will never really end. Never really end, never really end, never really end, never really.
I was about 200 feet from the explosion. We were playing basketball and then they told us to move out, so we moved out to the intermediate school. And we were sitting there watching the fire, and then all of a sudden a big explosion happened. And then we hit the deck and we ran out of there as fast as we could.
Did you feel anything? Did you feel a shock wave?
There was a giant force of pressure just pushing me back. And there's shrapnel flying everywhere from the explosion.
So you got to be a little affected by this right now. Are you still kind of in shock?
I'm still shaking up. I've been stopped shaking up since the whole thing happened. I mean, that's probably the worst thing I've ever seen in my life.